Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm Ian Carlos Crawford.
I'm Dayspring.
Zachary Patton Garcia.
Hi, I'm Adam Sass.
I'm Sabrina Ryan.
I'm Nick Gatau.
I'm Angela Rockstar.
I'm May Get Out Schultz.
And I'm Dana Piccoli, and you are with us for a special episode of Slayerfest.
We are here today to discuss the legacy of Michelle Trachtenberg. Sabrina, how did you find out of her passing, and how did it hit you at first?
I saw a headline with her name on Instagram with a little picture, and I tap every time, and it's the feeling that you get whenever someone beloved who you don't really know but you've lived with your whole life passes, where it's surreal, and for a second you're like, whoa, wait, whoa, and it doesn't process for a few minutes, and so you end up just sort of reading comments and looking for information, waiting for the emotions to hit, and then they do, and you have all this information, and it's extra hard with her because it's like my little sister.
Yeah. Nick, how about you?
A friend texted me a link to the first headline that had come out, and it was just question mark. It felt unreal, and realizing I think it also hits extra hard when it is a young person who passes. That feeling of lost time. And also I think with Michelle Trachtenberg having grown up in a way with her, it also hits, a bit older than her, but not much. So it feels like she was my avatar in the Buffy space. So it feels like losing a sister.
I'm 30 now. She's older than me, but she still feels younger than me. 39. My God, 39. That's insane. She had so much more to do.
Obviously it was a shock to me, but I think I probably had the reaction most people did, which was shock. Disbelief, I would say. Disbelief. It was, you read stuff online and you have to question everything now. So I just assumed there was some mistake or some, it truly was like, oh, this is a prank or something, some weird account, lying for weird clout, because it seemed so impossible to lose Michelle Trachtenberg so early, because she was my age, and you always think about well, that's me, that's my sibling, that's my spouse, my friend, that can't be.
That's what I keep thinking of, is I just hope more than anything that she did know the impact that she had, and that she does leave a really strong legacy. And again, she had people's childhoods unlocked, their teenage years, young adulthood. She was a pretty impactful entertainer.
Yeah.
I just hope that somewhere in the between of the here and the there, or the wherever, that she got to know how impactful and iconic and how much she meant to us,
Yeah, just really, really sad. I definitely cried on and off about it. And I'm usually pretty good with celebrity deaths, where I'm like, oh, that's sad. But that's kind of it. Dayspring, how did you find out?
I was reading page 6 and the story just came up. And I thought it was an error. I thought it was AI. My knee-jerk reaction was AI. This is a bogus story. And I was just incredibly shocked. This is an actress who has been in my life since I was 8 years old. And we had seen her on Pete and Pete, Harriet the Spy, all the way through to Gossip Girl. And these shows always came to me, a lot of her projects always came to me during pivotal moments in my life. When I just moved to New York, there was Gossip Girl, and it felt like the entire city was a mini Gossip Girl. You all were in New York during that era. Cell phones were becoming a big thing. You could snipe photos of celebrities, and I don't even need to get into the idea of Buffy. I was 17 when Dawn showed up, and I have a little brother, and so it just gave me perspective, and I've just not been okay, and I just I actually went to the apartment complex because I was in Columbus Circle the other day, and I went to one Columbus Place, and I just paid my respects there to the little girl who walked around with a notebook, being a little spy that taught me how to write, how to observe. And it's so ridiculous. Like, how do you even like tell someone you never knew that this has had such a profound impact on you?
It's funny that you mentioned that you thought it was fake because Joe Carollo, who's been on, was texting me it. And I was like, she didn't like, this is fake. Like he like saw some stupid, like I figured like some stupid like clickbait or AI headline, but no, he was fucking right. Cause I was like, he was like, no, it's being reported right now. And I was like, and then I looked and it was like, yeah, it had happened. Dana, how about you? Like what?
I think I saw it on Blue Sky. Like I was like, I was just starting my day for the morning or something for work, and I saw it, and I immediately texted you because I knew that you must have known. I mean, it hadn't been out for very long, maybe like 20 minutes or a half an hour or something when I saw it. But yeah, I think that if you have a connection in any way to the Buffyverse, like Dawn is all of our little sisters.
Yeah.
This would never have been my first thought for anything. This would have been like the least thing I would have ever expected. And so Adam Strawn sent me a link and I opened it and my heart just sunk. And Alistair had just gone to work. And so I texted him about it and texted my family group chat because I felt like I just had to like talk about it because I was just sitting at home alone. And it just felt really shocking. I don't even think I like cried right away. It just felt like, and it felt like this for a couple of days. It just didn't feel real. Yeah, it hit real hard. I think it's probably hit us hard. Brittany Murphy hit me really hard too. And I feel like so stupid because these are celebrities and like they don't know I exist. They don't. But like there are certain celebrities and artists and actors who just fit into the fabric of who you are as a person and like make up your memories. And she's one of those. And Brittany Murphy was one of those. And it hit me really hard. And in the week since this has happened, since she's passed, it like really has lined up with how I felt when Brittany Murphy passed. Like it just feels like it's really sad. My whole mood has just been really down and,
I just immediately started bawling. I feel like we've been losing a lot of creative people in this year already who have had a huge impact on me. So it hit me pretty hard.
And I guess I'm just a little too attached because of the projects that I loved her in, like Buffy being the pinnacle of that, but like everything else too. Like I can't even like, even if she wasn't in Buffy, she was a part of all of my favorite things still, she was still there. She still had much of a lot of presence in all of the entertainment I was consuming at that time. And the entertainment that, when I was a preteen watching a teenager do this made me feel like I was that cool teen that was going to do that, that's how my Euro trip was going to be when I would turn 18,
Yeah. Angela?
I don't go on Facebook very often, but I went on Facebook and it was the first thing that I saw. And I was like, I thought it was fake. And so then I Googled it and I was devastated. I mean, devastated. Especially with the revival of Buffy coming up, I was playing with the ideas of how Dawn would, in my mind, I couldn't even, she was so close to our age.
Yeah, she's like a year older than me.
Yeah, this is one of the, this is probably the most impactful celebrity for me that I was just like, holy shit, like this is really affecting my daily life. Like this is like I would think about it while I was driving and I would just like think about, and she was just a few years younger than us. So I'm like, holy, like it just brings mortality to the forefront, of my own thought process, I guess, in general.
And especially like a liver transplant, like that feels like that's like not something that happens to people our age.
Right.
But like, I went on high blood pressure medication literally a week after I turned 30. And they were like, you are too young to be on blood pressure medication, but...
I think I've been trying to make sense of it and I've been talking with my husband about it and we kind of came to the thing where it's like, again, like I think she in age was more closer to you, but like she was still on like all the time when I was growing up. So I felt like I grew up with her. You know, she really had like childhood entertainment on lock. Then she had teenage entertainment on lock. Then she had young adult entertainment on lock. So she was always there, and she was always in like really pretty significant markers in, you know, in entertainment. Like these were not small projects. Like 17 again was a really big movie. I remember Harriet the Spy. People still talk about Harriet the Spy. Harriet the Spy was one of those movies that, you know, I, like everybody else, ran out and grabbed a damn, you know, composition book and wrote on it, you know, and was hoping somebody would find it so it would cause a lot of drama like it did for her. And, you know, wrote, you know, about all, you know, my friends in it, and Inspector Gadget, obviously Buffy. I feel like that one is shit. Is, you know, it's just, she's always been there. And so it's like just so wild that it feels like a sort of end to a certain chapter of a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, when she passed, the thing that I said, and I really like, I'm still in amazement, is like she defined different archetypes on TV after doing one role one time. Like TV's biggest bitch, it will always be Georgina Sparks, the quintessential little sister. When you talk about TV series Little Sisters, Dawn is always gonna come up. And we talk about little pint-sized spies. She's right there next to Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and whatever. Like it's crazy. And I think that speaks to her like raw talent, you know?
Like even Eurotrip, like people don't talk about it enough, but like it was like marketed everywhere. Like the DVD was everywhere, the VHS was everywhere, like things like that. Ice Princess, huge Disney movie that people still talk about. 17 again, huge, like, you know, again, a really big Disney movie, and she was part of all of those things.
You know, I don't know much about Michelle's personal life or those struggles. I just know that she was a huge part of a lot of our lives, and was very talented. To keep working as consistently as she did, and to stay in the public consciousness, people remember her, and we'll go on remembering her, especially here in the Buffy fandom.
I know a lot of people don't really like Dawn as a character. I've always been a Dawn defender, and I think it started because I already liked her as an actor. And so let's see. When she shows up on Buffy, she's in like junior high, right? And I was in junior high at the time, so I felt a huge kinship with Dawn. I was a few years younger than the rest of the Scoobies. And so she was one of my representative characters. Like Willow and Tara, that was relationship goals. I wanted to be Tara. I wanted to be a witch with a hot witch girlfriend. And Dawn was like, okay, I want her to be my sister or my best friend. And she just meant so much to me as a character. And of course, the iconic line of the hardest thing in this world is to live in it, that Buffy gives her before she dies, and then Dawn gives to Buffy after she comes back. And it's like, I'm already about to start crying. It is such a simple sentiment, and it is so fucking true. And I am just so sad that she doesn't get to continue being here and making art, and that she won't get to be a part of the Buffy revival, because I would have loved to have seen Dawn come back.
Even if you're not a Dawn defender, you still view her as your like little sister if like you love the show, right? Like, yeah. Like I feel like even the people that maybe don't like her, it's like, oh, she's annoying, but she's like, when you have like a family member that it's like they're annoying but they're family, like,
right. And there's no getting around the fact that she was an amazing actress. Michelle was a terrific actress. Like I was just rewatching some stuff today just because I was looking for some of my favorite Dawn moments and scenes and stuff, and I was like, man, she was fantastic in this. Like it doesn't matter if you found her character annoying. Right. She was a damn good little actress.
Yeah, and like from childhood to adult, which is pretty impressive.
When you like such a niche thing like Buffy or whatever, you cannot understand the impact that somebody from your thing may have had on everyone. You know, when you're like a kid, these actors are their kid. Like, you don't really, it doesn't click. It wasn't until she passed that I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it never really connected for me that she was all those different roles and meant so much to so many of us.
I mean, I really knew her the way many millennials knew her from early Nickelodeon shows. And I think that was probably Michelle Trachtenberg's big power. Was I think she was the first actor I was aware of who was following me along in my own age development. I was a Nickelodeon kid, so I saw her in Pete and Pete first.
I rewatched Harriet the Spy. I cried at like every other scene because she's just so fucking good. And it's like this precocious little girl who just like, to be that good, and she's like overly verbose and like expressing all these emotions that like at 9 would be hard to be like expressing, and then just even acting, and like, I don't know, it felt like, oh, this is like an actor that like gets it. Daysbrink, as you mentioned, like she has a career that spanned her whole fucking life and almost our whole lives.
Yeah.
Which is impressive to say.
And how natural she played all of these roles. I think it's a real accomplishment. It's a really big accomplishment. And I don't know that she felt the level of appreciation that everyone had for her. I mean, she did each time those shows aired, but like, it felt like when she stepped away from the spotlight, we weren't giving her roses as much because, you know, she wasn't in our face demanding them. But yeah, it's a real body of work. I mean, honestly, just you go through her filmography, put TV aside, it's hits. These are hits. You know what I mean? Like, damn.
Right. Like, I was reading something that was like, it's wild that she was, and it is crazy, she was left off the Vanity Fair, whatever that big like teen issue was back in the day, because she had been acting longer than most of them had been at that point.
Yeah. And I remember there was some kind of relationship or friendship she had with Lindsay Lohan. I don't know how truthful this rumor was, but back in the day, apparently she had turned down a role so Lindsay could get it, and Lindsay turned down Inspector Gadget so she could get the role of Penny. I don't know how, but when I think of that Vanity Fair cover with that sort of next gen with like Hillary and Lindsay and the Olsen twins, I do remember thinking like, why was Michelle not on there? And, you know, I think when defending Dawn, it seems so odd to me because I remember when Buffy season 5 was airing and I was going on the chat rooms asking people, do you like Dawn? Because my biggest fear was, as we were getting to the end of the season, was that she was going to be killed off. And I thought she brought something to the Buffyverse that had been lacking. And I had a conversation with my dad at the time, and he was here like, the sister makes Buffy feel like a big sister, like she has a home and she has a family. And I just think, you know, during that time, there was a lot of talk from the writers that they weren't going to do a traditional love interest for Buffy. They were going to give her a sister, and that sister was going to be her love interest. And that was so groundbreaking at the time to see a sister that would risk her life and everything for her little sister, who, yes, of course, was annoyed. Yes, who could have been bratty, but I think it was a good cultural sample of sort of millennials and their siblings. And so that's why, like, when I see that news, when I saw the news the other day, I think of my little Don, my little brother, and how defensive I am of him. And it's just so, I don't know, it hits really close.
Dawn had this, the way that they wrote her relationship, I'm a Spike fan. So the way they wrote her having this older brother-esque, I mean, I just really liked that character.
I keep thinking of like her career in relation to Sarah's, and I feel like because they even do look like sisters, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
I feel like a lot of her acting, she, like, because she was younger, probably maybe took cues from Sarah, and they probably had the same like sensibility with acting.
She really made a study of Sarah. Like this girl that she super looked up to, probably like a big sister before this even happened, like the role happened. And she made a study of her. And Dawn is just all the parts of Sarah that were like, or of Buffy, that like had to go away for her to be a superhero. All the parts that were like whiny and needy and like, And those aren't like flaws. Yeah, that's what you would be in that situation if you didn't have super strength and people telling you to turn your feelings off or whatever. And yeah, I think it's probably a bond that none of us will totally understand. And they worked together like diligently, like long days, every day, showing up on set ready to work. Like that's a bond that is like crazy in a lifetime.
You know, I was talking about this with one of my friends who worked in like soaps back in the day. And we were talking today about Michelle because I was telling him that I was going to be on this episode today. And he was here like, you know, there's a reason why her and Sarah had such great chemistry. It's because they both have that work ethic. The soaps, you have to work really hard. You have to show up every day.
You're
But not only do you
memorizing scripts every day.
That's what he said. He's like, she on set, the reason why you didn't see her go through so much difficulty is because Michelle knew she had to be on time. She needed to know her lines. And that's why she had a wonderful career. So,
and I mean, for Sarah to like you, every actor from Buffy who's been on this podcast said Sarah Michelle Gellar never messed up a scene. So like, you did not want to mess up a scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar because she always memorized her lines, like did not mess up at all. Didn't like mess up lighting set, like where you stand. And I imagine Michelle probably was a lot like that. And I like to think that like Georgina is her Catherine, you know, and like,
wow,
she did Black Christmas where she's like a scream queen who dies. And, you know, Sarah did like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, I feel like, I don't know, right?
Very interesting. And so like Mysterious Skin is her Southland Tales.
Yeah.
What's her Scooby-Doo? We got to figure out what her Scooby-Doo was.
Would be her Scooby-Doo.
I mean, is it Harriet the Spy?
It might be.
It might be.
Harriet the Spy was a really big deal when it came out because it was based on a series of books, and they took it and they made this movie, and Rosie O'Donnell was a big draw at the time. And so having her as the like mentor figure, I cannot remember her character's name for the life of me. And because Michelle had been a bit of a hit on Pete and Pete, people were coming into it extremely excited. I remember seeing it in the theater with probably a couple friends at the time because, you know, it was rated PG, and just being like heartbroken by the friendship conflict in it and so joyful at the resolution in it. And Harriet was just such a fucking cool character and so admirable for us weird kids. I need to rewatch it and see if she's queer coded because I'm thinking back on it and I'm like, yeah, probably. But she was certainly weird girl coded. And that is something that means a lot to me, to see characters like that where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm that weird too.
I mean, I was sharing this with a friend kind of in the same universe of like reflecting, whereas like I actually had a black marble notebook that I would carry around in elementary school and write like fun facts in.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so yeah, she was the archetype.
I was keeping notes on gossip. I was keeping notes on like who's doing what, who's up to what. I was writing boys' names in numbered lists. You know what I mean? Like fully influenced.
Also, like I think back to Pete and Pete, and like she had that same sort of like plucky, not your average little sister vibe. She was intense in that.
I love Nona Mecklenburg. I love that her dad was Iggy Pop on the show, and she perpetually had a cast, but she was so fucking cool. And I was like, I want to hang out with this girl.
That was kind of her whole deal as an actor, was like, this was your friend. And from Pete and Pete into Harriet the Spy, this was your friend. This is your friend Harriet. And then there was a few years where before she moved on to Buffy, and then in that time I had aged up, and I had aged up into Buffy, and I was a teenager, and I was, you know, into these sort of older teen shows, and then here comes Michelle Trachtenberg, sort of aging along with me into from Nickelodeon to Buffy to more serious stuff that she would go from Buffy into, like Mysterious Skin, which is a huge. It's a very devastating film, but it's a very wonderful, wonderful Greg Araki film that I'm so happy that she got to do. I mean, I think she really was able to have these eras in her life that I think a lot of us took for granted because she moves through them so effortlessly.
But it's funny because all these audiences are adjacent to each other, sort of. And yet she's got a lock on each part of the market. Like, if you were femme in the 90s and the 2000s, you owe her something. That's crazy.
I was thinking about that with a lot of the headlines, right? It's funny to see what writer, like Gossip Girl star or Buffy star or Harriet the Spy. It's like funny, like seeing which one they pick because you really could pick any of them, but like, you know,
straight guys were posting Eurotrip will never be the same.
Exactly. She really had her hands in like every like pie.
Yeah, the film buff people were like, she's so good in Mysterious Skin and like posting clips or whatever. Like, she was cooking.
It's weird that, like you mentioned, Dayspring, she was like on the outskirts of those like teen stars at the time, but she never really had any of the like, it was like she was friends with the people that had the drama, but she didn't seem to have any like public like drama.
No, she seemed to be actually a pretty private person.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I always think that's impressive when you can be famous for that long and basically avoid any like really big controversies or like, even like, I don't even remember seeing it's like, oh, she said something that was off. Like, I don't even remember that being a thing. Mm-hmm. And usually at least people have that happen.
Our unproblematic queen.
Yeah, right. Like, I feel like for a while she was hanging out with like Pete Wentz and like Ashley, like she was even like with the like pop punk crowd. And like, I always thought like, oh, she seems like she's like really like cool and chill and just like kind of normal. I don't know.
And again, during like her Gossip Girl days, her and Chase Crawford were like BFFs. They were going to, what was that like place in the village, like the Macaroni Inn or something like that, where you could never get a table. And she was always there.
And like, I also, have you all seen the like, how she was fighting with people in the comments because they were like ragging on like her looks?
I mean, just goes to show you, nobody really knows what's going on with other people. And because she was so private, like, you know, she was dealing with some health issues. She didn't want to share it with the world. And I get that.
The toxicity of the fucking internet, like, it's just, it has made me so angry this week. Just thinking about how in the last couple of years of her life, that was the kind of things that she was seeing online. If she posted a picture of herself in the last year, then everybody was talking about her opinion. And it's not fair. It's very sad. And it does make me very sad. And I don't want to get like real emotional about it. But I just keep thinking about like what she was thinking.
I mean, she was a woman in her late 30s who was already in the public eye, who is already like anything that you do as a woman past 25 is scrutinized. So God, I can imagine why she was like, you know, can you guys just kindly fuck off? Because I would.
Especially if it like affects your appearance, then it's like, oh God, this is going to be a thing. Like, just shut the fuck up. Like, and I remember you recently when I had some trolls about saying Sarah Michelle was too old, you being like, yeah, no one wants women to age past like 30, and that's the problem.
They're lucky if we can get them to 30.
I think social media, and I partake in so much social media culture, so who am I here to point a finger? But I think it really has destroyed a lot of productive conversations. I think it's contributed a lot to toxic behavior. And I think, and I see this a lot with Power of X-Men, I don't think people understand there's someone else on the other end of these comments. The person, and they're going to read it, and no matter how tough, because I do feel like I'm pretty tough with comments, but like it hurt, you know, just catch me in the wrong moment and you carry that with you. And why would you want to do that? And let's say you were right. You're right in the comments. She is sick. And you're what? Making her feel bad. Like, what is your end game here? Shut the fuck up.
That's what I keep thinking. I'm like, I hope she understood that, you know?
Yeah.
What impact did it have other than to most likely hurt her, you know?
Yeah.
I oh my God. I think that's what like, I think of somebody who I really hope didn't live, you know, the end of her life feeling self-conscious or not understanding, you know, that how important she was to people, or like I hope she had her family. I know she had good people around her, and
yeah, and like there was that report that she even went to like a restaurant with her friends. So I'm at least like, I know that the restaurant owner had said like, yeah, like I was worried about her. She did look like she wasn't doing well, which, you know, because she wasn't, but I was glad to hear at least like oh, at least she like did get to, like you said, at least we do know that she had like friends and she had, her mom came to see her that morning. So clearly her mom and her were close, and like the like tiny bit of like, I don't know, whatever is like, okay, well, at least I knew she was still going out with her friends. She was still like doing things.
And it's important to say that like Michelle was herself a helper who cared deeply about like fixing the world and like devoted herself to it. And that's the kind of people we didn't want to lose right now.
I read something that was released after she passed, and it was discussing her humble fashion. And then the article went on to say she kept this humble fashion and donated millions of dollars silently throughout her entire career to different medical causes, to children. When I read that, I was just like, this woman was so effing amazing.
Anything that I ever saw her a part of, interview-wise, anything, like I think of her at the 10-year Pally Fest, and like them asking her what's on her iPod, and she's like, Britney Spears, you want a piece of me, and doing like a little face, and it's that same sort of like an abundance of good energy,
This was someone who I think was a genuinely good person who just did not want to be in the spotlight, and particularly as she was going through any issues.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe, I always wondered why Michelle didn't have a bigger career, and maybe that was her decision.
Yeah.
At a certain point, maybe you just say like, I'm good where I'm at, or I don't want this extra speculation. If especially as a child growing up in the industry, maybe she was just like, I'm good, and whatever her reasons, like, I respect it.
Again, like you said, Dana, like, she doesn't have to share like if she's sick or like she does. I never understand, because right, this isn't like a new thing. People always feel like they're owed things from and I just never understand that. Text your friend, right? Like if you're like, oh, it looks like she might be ill, and you're actually concerned, and it's not you being an asshole, text your friend to be like, oh, I hope she's like, don't leave a fucking public comment on her. It's like, what is that helping?
Right. I want to go back, because Dayspring said something earlier on that about Dawn, and I think that the character of Dawn in season 5 was able to bring out flavors in all of the characters that had not been able to exist before, and especially Spike. Especially because my favorite Dawn scenes are almost always with Spike. I think that they had such a great relationship, such a great like little sister, big brother, big bad brother thing. I mean, like even when he first kind of like spends time with her when they break into the magic shop together.
I do love that.
but not just that, but it like Willow and Xander is able to have this extra depth of character thanks to Dawn, and of course Buffy. But I think it also like there's these moments that of Tara and Dawn. They both are these outsiders to the Scooby Gang for one reason or another, and they have that conversation when they, right before they do the thumb wrestling thing. It could have gone the Cousin Oliver Scrappy-Doo way when you bring in a new character and they just, but it didn't. It made everything better.
Oh, such a great point.
With Tara and Dawn, I think all the time of how Drew Greenberg, when we first had him on the podcast, said that was absolutely the thing he wanted to do when he was hired on Buffy, was to make sure there was an intimate relationship between like a child and a one of the queer adults, to show like, look, this is an intimate like family type of relationship. And he wanted Tara to be like her really sweet aunt. And how that was all he ever was going for when he was writing them together, was like, Dawn can cuddle on her because this is like her family member, and how he didn't see that on TV at the time. And I just like, that is really sweet, which then makes me want to cry, because I actually think one of her best acting, like one of the most heartbreaking Dawn moments, is when Buffy finds Dawn waiting with Tara. And she's like, I didn't want her to be alone. Like, ugh.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking. And I think Dawn, it's so like Dana, like you just took what I have always felt and gave words to it because she did flesh out those flavors in those characters and in ways that were really significant, in ways that Buffy couldn't have. And, I remember that scene so well where Tara, they find the body in the magic shop. She goes outside and she looks at Dawn and she goes, "It's best non-Scoobies like me and you get out of their way." And it frames that isolation that Tara has. Or after, like when Glory was going to come and cut Dawn, and I'm forgetting the character's name, but Joel, the guy, is the one who
Joel
actually
Grey's character, yeah.
Joel Grey slices her. But the way that Spike looks at Dawn when he was about to be thrown off, and you can almost hear him say "little bit," you know what I mean? Like, and oh my God! And again, I think the character was such a, I don't know. It was just so cool the way it was done. Like they had to rewrite memories. It was such an epic story that they had to get the key, mold it flesh, send it, make it human, send it to her to protect. That's a narrative that the writers trusted the audience to be able to follow through with. And, it's heartbreaking. Sorry, I keep saying heartbreaking, but
I think that that's kind of what we love about Buffy. Buffy, and that's what my mom would always say about too. Like sure, the demographic was like, oh, it's like a teen show, but this and Dayspring, X-Men, the original animated series, like, yeah, that was the demographic, but they didn't dumb it down. They didn't try to be like, well, it's got to be stupid because it's for younger people. Like, they talked to us like we were adults on the show, and we were able to, like you said, figure it out with Dawn. Like, we got there, we knew. I always remember when I worked at Barnes & Noble when I was like 19, there was a book and it made me so mad. 'Cause it was like a list of TV shows that jumped the shark and how, and it listed Buffy as one. And it was like, in the show's 5th season, they just randomly add a sister that Buffy's supposed to have had the whole time. And I was like, did this person not actually watch the show when they wrote this? Like,
so when I started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I remember regularly started watching it. It was during season 5. So she was already there for me. She was there since my early memories of Buffy. So I never had the sort of transition period that everybody else had, where some people felt a little salty that a new character was put in and like they had to accept her. I already did because she was there already. And that wasn't the first thing I'd ever seen her in. So, when you're a kid and you see somebody, like, the concept of actors being in multiple things is wild to you. So seeing Harriet the Spy and Buffy the Vampire Slayer was insane. And so I loved her, immediately. And then just seeing her, and she also has, like, we joke a lot about the get out, and her being annoying in season 5 and stuff like that. But, like, there's such markers of the show because those are like iconic moments. Those are moments that we all remember. And like, everybody quotes get out, things like that.
And that's my favorite. It's also my favorite villain arc. It's my favorite arc of the entire series is the key and Glory and, the gift and everything. So like, it was frankly, it was probably the most genius decision to make on Buffy.
Honestly, one of the best moments on TV, let alone on Buffy, but like definitely Buffy's best jump scare was her reveal as a character. And it's because she gave little sister in one line reading. It was sincere. You didn't think it was like a monster or a demon. I mean, maybe in real time people were debating it, but like in a moment you were like, wait, and it makes the whole thing work. And that's not like easy to do.
And it was earned. I mean, I want to go back and see who that writer was, because Buffy has foreshadowed Dawn as early as season 3, and Little Miss Muffet counting down from 7-3. Oh, and then the scene with Faith, like, little sis is coming. So much to do before she gets here. Like, this was not a jump the shark. Jump the shark is not that, like. Again, that boils my blood because, again, the character, whether you liked her or not, the mythology of putting her into the series was well thought out and well planned.
Yes, and I think I've said this with both of you on this podcast numerous times, how, like, I do feel like a lot of people, I get Dawn not being a favorite. She's not my favorite, but I still, like, cared about her. I don't understand the people that, like, really hate her, because it's like, in season 5, when she finds out that she basically wasn't real, her mom dies, her sister dies, and she found out she was, like, are you kidding me? I would also be, I'm a nightmare at way less inconvenience things, like.
And she's snuggling with the Buffy bot at the start of season 6.
Nobody has experienced as much trauma in the series as Dawn has.
Yes.
Hank is MIA, and she finds Tara. She finds Tara's body, her surrogate.
Her surrogate mother, yes.
Yes, like right there. Like, that is traumatizing.
Yes. So, like, maybe you do pick up stealing. Like, I don't, right? Like,
She had her little moment where she cut herself and set the trash can on fire in season 5, but she earned doing that season 6 and 7 too, and didn't, go off the rails. She had to grow up pretty fast in the way that Buffy had to grow up pretty fast, but hers was never acknowledged as much as Buffy's was, because Buffy was the one chosen to be the hero. And again, this isn't like anybody's journey was more or less hard than anybody else's. They were just all different. And hers was a little bit more lonely, which I think stands out, because Buffy, Willow, and Xander were growing up with each other and with Giles, and Dawn lost her mom in the very first season she's in, and then has to grow up by herself. And she's got these teenagers who are also trying to figure out who they are. And so it wasn't really anybody to help her. She had to do it herself. And I think that's very, very admirable.
and like, I think the fan reaction to her was unfair, because I do think what you said is really important, that she was kind of alone, right? Like, she was the kid. I mean, they were not adults, but they were, for all intents and purposes, to her kid brain, these were adults, like, that she was hanging out with. They were like cool older kids, or like adults. And like, she didn't seem, we see Janice in one episode, we hear her name in another, but like, she didn't seem to have like a friend group. She didn't seem to have like much of a social life. And I feel like she was actually that was like a more realistic teen than like Xander, Buffy, and Willow, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
We love all of them, but like, and it's not a knock to anyone. It's just, I think that's why she got the shit end of the stick with the fan wise.
Tough is a word that comes to mind. And that's what we need. Dawn Summers was tough. We said it here. She was tough. She wasn't annoying. She was bratty. She went through all this trauma and she rose above it, and she was tough.
Yeah, she just was. And like, I think of like season 7 when she's like, hands the sword to Amanda and is like, this is yours. Like, she is even mature enough to be like, clearly being a Slayer is something Dawn thought about. Like, she's like, needs to clear her brain. She's like so frazzled from it, but like understands what's going on and is like, oh no, man, that's you. Here, you got to take and like, I don't know. I feel like that was a really big moment for Dawn that people don't talk about as much as like, oh, her screaming or her yelling, get out, get out, get out. Because yes, she did yell, get out, get out, get out a lot.
Yeah. I mean, but that was in season 5 when she's like 14. Like, she grows up a lot in the subsequent seasons.
But I think to the point that we're all making here is that I think Dawn in those seasons 5, 6, and 7, she does have these quiet moments that exhibit her strength. Where, fine, maybe she was bratty later on, or she was crying out for attention. But, when she looks at Buffy and she goes, it has to have the blood, at the end of 5. When she sees Tara and she's like, I just didn't want her to be alone. Do you think she's cold? And even that moment where she hands the sword to Amanda, I just think of like where Dawn probably, like, her sister's a Slayer. She's supposed to have that special relationship with her big sister, but she doesn't. And instead of being bratty, she hands it off to the person who should have it. And she takes on her role and looks into, however the scene ends, she's looking through the book. Again, I think she's undersold, and it really does break my heart that people would encapsulate her as just being annoying. I think it's such a flat read for a very complex character, and those seeds were planted for her.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think, it's been great seeing, because I know it was probably, fucking tough for her at the time, being a teenager herself, having to see that reaction, and, thank God Twitter and everything wasn't around at that time, right? But it must have been tough for her, but I'm glad that she got to see the turn, because I think the turn happened pretty quickly still. People quickly grew to really love Dawn.
I think as a character, Dawn probably did not probably put Michelle at a disadvantage with the audience, because they were playing knowingly on the sibling or the character you just up and introduced as if she was casually already there. It was a great bit at the time in that season 5 episodes, going from Buffy versus Dracula into Ryomi, and where it's like, oh, she's suddenly here. That was a delightful thing. And, I think maybe the character was probably written a little younger, because I keep thinking about this, where she was written so childlike, because she was such an innocent that Buffy had to protect, but also she was not much younger than the characters were in season 1, maybe a few years off. But I think, Michelle was game for what the show asked of her, which was just to be this, this sibling who really stayed in Buffy's shadow and required her to kind of run around and be frantic, and Dawn's in trouble, it must be Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, obviously people the character was supposed to be obnoxious at times. You're supposed to be in Buffy's shoes. You were supposed to be irritated and impatient, but ultimately, when she is threatened, you were supposed to be upset, which is weirdly the emotion I'm having right now, because it feels like Dawn's in trouble.
When you read interviews that Michelle gave at the time, she was such a fan of the show. She had thought that she could come in as Jenny Callender's long-lost niece or something like that. She wanted to be there. She wanted to be present, which, that does come through. And her performance, again, like I feel like Dana just like, you say all the right things. Everything I feel it's encapsulated in your words, but she's talented. So again, you may not like the character, it may not be written, but you cannot argue that the actor behind it is not incredibly talented and had a passion for the material.
So back a while ago, when I used to write for Geeks Out, which is how I know our co-host Nick, they were the editor at the time. The writing I did doesn't exist, as they changed over sites or whatever. But I wrote an In Defense of Dawn piece in 2015, I think. And I just remember them being like, that's fine, In Defense of Dawn, but you're not allowed to write In Defense of Kennedy or I'm firing you.
That's fine.
But I brought it up because I wanted to remind myself of that. I wrote it in reaction to, at the time, BuzzFeed had a poll of the worst character on Buffy, and Dawn was voted the worst. And it's like, come on.
America hates women so much. That's crazy.
I also feel like there's something to that, in the sense that, so for context, I was actually not allowed to watch Buffy because I lived in a very Christian household, and things that featured demons were not allowed. But every now and then I would be like, oh, what's this? And just pop in for an episode. But the first episode I did that was the first episode that Dawn shows up. And I just took it for granted. I was like, oh, I didn't know. I'd heard about Buffy, but I didn't know that she had a sister. So I just took it for granted that Dawn was a part of the show. And so from that perspective, hearing that people hate her so much is kind of like, you are Dawn. Imagine you hanging out with the Scoobies. You would be the weirdo. You would be the Xander, but down a peg, because you showed up into their lives and they weren't asking for you. At least Buffy chose Xander. So
yeah.
To hate Dawn is oh, okay, well you hate yourself. You're the real villain here.
I want to bring this up because I think it's important to remember how talented Michelle was as an actress. Michelle had impeccable comic timing.
And their sister dynamic on Buffy is so real.
Yeah.
It's so real, where they both love each other and care about each other so much, and they also want to kill each other sometimes, but they're never going to intentionally hurt each other.
Yes, that they work so well as siblings. Yes, but I was watching this episode today where Dawn's writing in her diary, and she talks about Willow and Tara and how she tells Joyce about it. There's just she just had she knew how to land something funny without it being look at me, I'm landing something funny. But she just she was often the comic relief in Buffy. I don't think we appreciate how much her and Anya had some really funny moments, and I've always appreciated Michelle's timing when it came to, well, I mean, frankly, timing period as an actor is important, but I always appreciated her comic timing.
When they're playing the game of life And Dawn is like losing, and Anya's like, curses, I have too many children, a mortgage, more cash that I don't know what to do with. And you can only get that reaction from Dawn, where it's like, that means you're winning. And again, it wasn't delivered as campy or hokey. It was someone who knew her beats. And again, it was the chemistry and again, fleshing out those characters.
I feel like there are some actors who really disappear into their roles. And then there are some actors who always bring a little bit of themselves to their roles. And Michelle was one of those actors who always brought a little bit of herself to her roles. And I think that's to her strength.
So like a big thing with filmmaking now is like a lot of actors are hired to like sort of play a version of themselves already. Like what they already have inside is what you usually see. It's not a whole lot of like transforming into a character anymore. And I think she was an underrated actress in that she just wasn't... She deserves the credit for like being one of the first to do that, because in so many of her roles she was doing that. She was bringing little pieces out of herself. I can think of like, just different instances, like in Black Christmas, there's a part where she's helping Crystal Lowe's character, after she's throwing up, and I can like almost like picture that not even being in the script, because she's like, you're really, really smelly, no more drinky, right? Like little things that she says that like a man is not deciding to write that in a script, right? She's bringing that out herself, and she used to do that a lot. And it brought such like a grounding to every character that she would do that she just didn't get the credit for. That was that kind of acting before. That kind of acting is like everywhere on Netflix now.
Also, like getting cast as the kid's sister who is screaming a lot in season 5 of a wildly popular like cult following show is like a thankless job, right?
No, totally.
Oh, it's nearly impossible to come into a show in that far along as a new main character and be embraced immediately. I mean, it's really difficult.
Yeah, I feel like Anya just made the cut with like being able to sneak in, because she like kind of was in season 3 and she was in like 2 or 3 episodes. With Riley, I warmed up to Riley a lot more, especially this time going through season 4. I think that actor felt like sometimes he was acting in a different show. And Michelle never did.
Ian, it's easier to come in as a love interest because you expect love interests to come and go.
That's true, yeah.
It's very different to come in as like a key point of the story. The entire damn season revolves around Dawn. Like, it is about Dawn. She is the one. And Dawn was willing to sacrifice herself.
Dawn does try to jump first. She does. And I actually love that. I love that beat about Dawn, because that tells you a lot of who she is, right? She is scared, but she's not questioning it. She's just like, I know this is what I have to do, Buffy. But because they're sisters, Buffy's like they're both like arguing over who's gonna fucking jump off the thing. And like, oh, these are sisters. Like, these are like family members. And Dawn, and I think also the comedic timing was there. And I think the reason she wouldn't always get the credit for that is because she was like, quote unquote, the straight man, right? Like, she would have the comic timing, but it was more like, I more her being like, that's pretty stupid. Like, it was like a flat delivery, but it's on purpose that way because she's just like annoyed.
But that same thing works so well in Gossip Girl. Like she was so good.
I gotta say, I never watched Gossip Girl. I'd only seen like the first episode and the last episode. So I remember when the series finale aired, Jason, my old roommate's now wife, was like, I gotta watch a Gossip Girl finale. And I was like, you know what? I'll watch this. I was watching through some of her scenes in Gossip Girl. I felt like she was having a lot of fun doing it. Like,
oh, yeah.
You could tell Jesus, the bitch is back. Like,
she said it in an interview. That was her favorite character to play. And you can see it. It was amazing. I watched it as it was happening. And when Serena got that letter from G, and it was like, who's Georgina? And it was Michelle. Oh, my.
Yeah, those bitches hated to see her coming. Absolutely hated it.
I mean, in a show full of baddies, she was the big bad.
She was the big bad of Gossip Girl. Yeah, she was the id of that show.
One of like the greatest TV characters ever, I didn't watch Gossip Girl, but I sure as hell watched when Michelle Trachtenberg was on Gossip Girl, loved me some Georgina Sparks. Didn't understand the context it was in, but I knew who she was. It was her sort of take on Catherine from Cruel Intentions, you know? And, you know, she had like a fucking blast playing that role. And getting to come back, like, that must have been like so fun for her to do. And she probably was, I mean, I think that show got canceled after 2 seasons, but like, you know, she probably would have been excited to keep coming back for it.
I didn't realize actually till I looked it up how much she was in. I thought it was like she was in like 2 seasons. I didn't realize she's in every season of Gossip Girl.
Yeah, first season, and she's in the last episode. Yeah, and then she came back for the revival.
But yeah, she gave really good like Cordelia energy. I'm like, oh, she could have played a mean girl. I love this.
Yeah, and that's how it was. Like when she would come on for TV shows and stuff, she was never just there for an episode, right? Like she had like an extended stay.
I want to talk about some of her other roles. Like I was doing like a greatest hits reel. Whenever I'm doing like screenshot content, I will screen record everything, but I'm watching it. So I watch like all her scenes in Mysterious Skin, which is a really good movie. That movie is like very intense. It's very good. It's Greg Araki. It's a less wacky Greg Araki movie.
It is probably the least wacky of the Greg Araki.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a devastating fucking movie, especially when you go to see it in the theater and you're like, oh, this is going to be a movie about Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Michelle Trachtenberg looking for aliens. No, it's a movie about dealing with childhood sexual assault trauma.
The way I saw the movie was I was in Ireland I took an Irish lit class. At the end, we went to Ireland for 9 days. It was like a terrible trip. It was so boring. Our professor was like 95. He had us getting up at 5 a.m. and we would be done at like 7 p.m. And like, we saw the most boring shit. But the one night we had off in Dublin, I was like, let's just go to the movies, because I was with my friend Jude, who came on for I Saw the TV Glow. And at the time, this woman they were the 2 straight couples. They weren't a couple yet, but they were like so flirty. And I was like, I just want to go to the movies. I don't want to listen to them flirt anymore. We went to the movies and she got annoyed with me and she was like, well, there better not be any sexual assault or rape in this movie. And I was like, why would there be sexual assault or rape in this movie? Why is that your assumption?
Oh no.
If you've seen that movie, that's like the whole plot of the fucking movie. And I just knew Joseph Gordon-Levitt looked hot on the poster. It was a gay movie and Michelle Trachtenberg was in it. That was all I knew about it. And I was so like, why are you assuming because it's a gay movie, it's not gonna, and then it fucking right at the top of the movie has, and because we saw it in Ireland, I've noticed this since, there are, because America's a lot more prude with shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The like sexual assault was way more rough seeing it overseas than when I've seen it here. Like they like, of course, it's not like actual, but it's like the trauma, the kids being traumatized is a lot more traumatic in the UK version versus the American version. And she got up and stormed out of the theater, and I was like, well, fair enough.
It's not an easy watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's a heavy film for sure.
Yeah, but I was even watching just her scene. I think it's her first scene where her and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are at like the drive-in theater, and she it's such a good. She's like, I wish there was a movie playing, a movie about our lives, and it was everything that led up to this, and the end is us standing here together, and it's just like, oh fuck, like. It's so good. And she plays like this like alt girl where like, of course I like that. I was like, yes, make Dawn be like more hipstery and punk. I love it even more. If Dawn shopped at Hot Topic is like what she looks like in that movie.
Oh my God. That would have been amazing, by the way.
Right? That's how I would have written Dawn.
I was a big fan of Ice Princess as well, where she did all of her own skating because she was a trained figure skater. There was a brief moment where I was like, I wonder if I want to be a skater. I'm decent at ice skating, but I don't think I have the discipline or the patience to be a proper figure skater. I'm just going to skate around in a circle, occasionally do a little twirl.
I took ice skating lessons in middle school.
That checks out.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like what an impactful film that was for a lot of like millennials though.
I opened Disney Plus earlier this week or last week, and you know they have the carousel of like what's trending. Ice Princess was locked in, and it was like she was, I mean, I think about like people who are even younger than me that grew up with her in a different way. Like she was a role model for some folks, I'm sure. Like some little girls.
That was one of those movies that, like, when DVD racks were a big thing, it was like always front and center. Like they were moving copies of Ice Princess. The Ice Princess fandom was like rewatch fandom. You know what I mean? And it's a great movie.
It is charming.
So I'm a little bit older, so Ice Princess wasn't like really, I was probably like in college or something. I don't remember. I was like, okay, whatever. But there were all these ice skaters who were doing tributes with that AJ and Ali song that plays, and it was just, oh my god, like I was losing it. I'm like sobbing because they're saying like, Michelle, this film made me want to ice skate, made me decide I wanted to be a figure skater. And then there's like this guy who skates on this like crystal clear like ice thing in like the mountains of who knows. It's like it's the most stunning thing you've ever seen, and he's skating to as a tribute to her. It was just like it was like every other TikTok was a tribute to her with ice skating, and it was so beautiful.
I like want to be like, oh, send me those, but I also know that I will just cry at all of them. But yeah, it's very like a like Dawn-esque role where she's just like kind of like this like plucky young girl who's a little awkward. Which is kind of like her role in Eurotrip, and her comedic timing in that is also like Dawn, where it's like a little bit of the thankless job where she's like the straight one, the like straight player, but like
when they do the hash brownies.
I was gonna say, have either of you I had not seen that movie before.
I've seen it, yeah. My husband's obsessed with Eurotrip. Like, he loves it. And by the way, again, when this first came out, we watched it in the theaters, and we were like, oh my God, Dawn Summers has grown up, because when she takes off, like, you know, at the beach and you see her in her bikini, it was a defining role for her, and it was funny, and it in so many ways was her launch pad from like tween to, you know, adult actor, and hitting that genre, the teen comedy, sort of the Wendy with the Lost Boys role. Like, she really, I mean, owned it. She made it funny, and again, she was just so magnetic on screen. So.
Yeah, and that movie was like pretty big at the time, wasn't it? I feel like I remember it. Yeah, so I feel like it was like around the like Van Wilder era where those were
exactly.
Yeah.
When that movie came out, it was so synchronicity in my life because I had just done that this summer before I went to Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, like, and it was just so I came back home, and then this movie came out, and I was like, whoa, like, so that very much impacted me. Like, that became one of my favorite movies just because I just did that whole trip at a very similar time in my life, right in my junior year of high school.
I actually did gasp when I was like fast forwarding through it. The scene would hurt. So if anyone hasn't not seen it, she plays one of a twin. They're in this friend group, and like, is that when they do drugs, or is it they're just drunk? I don't remember, Dana. Like,
in Eurotrip,
when the lights come on at the club and her and the twins are making out, and then they realize that they're making out with like their twin, and they like freak out.
But I thought it was because they had all the hashish or the hash, isn't it?
I couldn't remember if it was that or the absinthe, because the one guy drinks the absinthe and there's like a weird green fairy on his shoulder.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, it's not. It's like so disturbing.
Listen, this is a movie with Lucy Lawless as well, like doing anal play. Yeah, she does the anal play scene or whatever when the guy's bound.
Isn't she the dom in like Amsterdam or something?
Yeah, she's a dom in Amsterdam. I'm sorry, it's been like a decade or two since I've seen it, but like, I mean, this movie is like, it goes there.
But like, it's also, I was reading something that was like, I forgot she was in 17 again, and I read a woman around our ages wrote a piece about why like Michelle Trachtenberg was like very much a millennial like pop icon. And it was like, she had the career I would have wanted as a kid. I got to be famous. I got to act in a movie where I was the main character. I got to flirt with Zac Efron. I got to fight with Buffy. Like, and I was like, yeah, that is what I would want.
You asked me if I remember the art film Mysterious Skin, and I'm like, but the Zac Efron movie, I remember that one.
I have a distinct memory of watching 17 again in theaters with people and being like, oh, she was on Buffy.
It is wild to be like, have these big hits in different decades.
Mhm.
Like you said, Dayspring, it's like she could have been like, I'm good. But then like, because I mean, but also she like 17 again, a movie I forgot she was in. That's a pretty famous movie. Like also like that and Eurotrip and all these other movies, but still had Gossip Girl, Buffy, and Harriet the Spy, which are pretty big milestones of like pop culture, I feel like.
Right. And we were talking before we started about her role in Pete and Pete.
Yes.
And like talked about like being like a millennial like icon, like millennials grew up on that, and she played Nona, like what a key role for like millennial development, you know?
That's where, so hilariously, little kid Ian thought Harriet the Spy was a spinoff of Pete and Pete when it first came out. So I was like,
interesting.
Oh, cool. Like the girl from Pete and Pete, did they like gave her a movie? And I really, really like, I don't remember when, but I just remember being like, I had really thought it was a spinoff. Because I was like, well, it's the same character.
They're very similar, yeah.
And I think I like looked up her age. She would have been like 9 at the time. And like still like exuded that confidence, which is like so charming.
The one clip I saw recently, and I had forgotten this existed, was Clarissa Explains It All.
Yes. Just she posted the clip to be like, oh, like blah, blah, blah. Like she played a brat, but she was so sweet. And Kenan Thompson even posted something. It was like the first of our like, Nickelodeon crew.
Watching all the celebrities then respond in real time made it feel even more real.
Yeah.
Like Rosie O'Donnell's like tribute to her. It was so, and she was just like, you were one of the good ones. She was so talented. And I was looking at behind the scenes footage for Harriet the Spy, and her and Rosie, you could see the chemistry there.
And I do feel like that's also telling if all these people that like from that long ago are like saying that shit, you know what I mean? Like, not to even wave into this because I would rather die, but I did see people mad that who's the one that's married to Ryan Reynolds that's like going through the lawsuit?
Lively. I know. I saw that, and I thought that was really unfair because I think it was a co-star who died. She was giving her grievance on that.
Yeah. Like even if they weren't close,
it was nice. Yeah, it was a nice thing. And by the way, again, had she not, then it would have turned into the headlines that she didn't, and I think it was handled great.
Dana saying there's no winning when you're a woman over 30. Like,
she was not going to win in that. No way she was going to win in that situation. I mean, all of her Gossip Girl colleagues said, like Leighton said something. Like, come on.
But yeah, it's been really sad. I keep crying. And annoyingly, and I'm realizing this is going to be forever. I relate any sad news about Buffy or any news about Buffy to my mom. And like, I told Dayspring when we were texting that like, which is, I feel like a very Hispanic thing. My mom would have been like, oh, she was so young. Her hair was so pretty. Like that would have been my, like.
She does have pretty hair.
I just had a shout out because my favorite Dawn beat is you're never going to believe what happened at school today. Buffy's saying to everyone sing and dance. And she's like, I gave birth to a pterodactyl. And Anya's like, oh my God, did it sing? Like, that is my favorite Dawn moment.
My favorite Dawn episode is the episode Potential, when she thinks she's a potential and when she realizes she's not, she immediately steps up to the plate and helps the actual potential, Amanda. And I think that is just such a great marker of Dawn as a person, the person who is kind of dropped into this world as the key. Somebody who never really exists has to learn that she never really exists. She has this purpose. And then when this purpose is kind of unwound and it doesn't exist anymore, she's not the key to anything anymore, has to learn how to exist as a person in Buffy's world. And how does she fit in that? And she more aligns with Xander because they're not really, supernatural anymore. She was created supernaturally, but to be like banished as being a human, what? She didn't even have knowledge of like the Anya knowledge of like, histories of demons and stuff like that. She doesn't have anything. And so she has to like craft and like carve out her own space in this world. And I think that episode really shows you when she does that. And I was so looking forward to her doing that, to seeing like who Dawn would have been as a person, as a fully grown person who's come into herself and decided what she is and who she is. And I think she would have been helping people.
I will always think of Michelle as Dawn on the back of Spike's motorcycle with the football helmet on. It was just such a great moment. Like I will think very, very fondly of Michelle, and I'm so sorry we won't get to see her as an adult, as Dawn as an adult, because I think she would have been a most excellent watcher.
She seemed like she had a lot of fun acting. And I was really excited to see, I know when we talked about the Buffy revival, we talked a lot about her.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did, because that has to be really said, is that Dawn was a character that, again, we have to divide these two because they are different people. Michelle Trachtenberg is a person, is a real person who has passed. But like, we were so excited to see Michelle Trachtenberg come back.
Yeah.
And get to do Buffy again. I was hoping that, because I've been like, man, over the last few years, I wanted her to come back and do these things and like build her confidence back up, because it seems like she had her confidence broken down a little bit, or whatever, struggles may have been going on in her life. We really don't know. And I don't think it's our business unless they make it our business. But I was excited to see her build her confidence back up, doing Gossip Girl again, coming back for Buffy, and hopefully having like, enough of a significant role. If out of anybody, that's the one who I saw coming back to that. And hopefully that would have, then had her excited to do other things. She was getting back out there. She was doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was reading that like the rumor is that like they will address Dawn's like absence. And I'm like, oh, whatever it is going to make me cry so much. Like, and I'm glad. I do think that is something. I do think that's how they should. They need to address it, because it can't just be like Buffy never sees her sister. Like, that would be weird.
I don't know. I'm torn, because part of me, it feels like if they just deal with it by saying she's off happy somewhere, then the ugly reality of the world doesn't invade my happy escape world. But I mean, that show is always so good at tugging at my heartstrings. So I will expect that whatever they do, I will feel feelings.
I think I don't want it to be she's just off happy somewhere, because then that implies that her and Buffy don't have a great relationship, or that it's like not worth seeing her. Like, I would like a moment that has the level of like reverence and seriousness that we have for Michelle. And I would much rather it be directly expressed as something of grief than just sort of like, she's at the Amalfi Coast.
Oh, she called, but like, you don't.
Yeah. She's stuck in Hawaii. There was a storm. Like, I don't think that's great.
I was even thinking, like, is it going to be a short thing where they just address some, fight that they all had that we never got to see, and remember Dawn, and, Dawn fought so hard in that battle, and then they kind of pull up like, old footage. Or I think I would prefer if it remained the same, as in she's no longer, at least in this realm, I think.
I like that idea. After we got the, what are we calling it, that they put out last year, the like audio book.
Oh, the audio drama. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like she could absolutely be in that parallel universe where Dawn didn't exist because of how she came into being from being the key. And yeah, she could be over there helping out Anya with the magic box or something. I love that idea.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
I just I can't even think about it right now. I can't even discuss it, because I don't, because I know the way that they have to go with it. It doesn't make sense for her to not be there if she is alive. It just doesn't make sense.
And like, I don't want that for Buffy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
And I also don't want to hear it, because I don't want it. I don't want another reminder that Michelle Trachtenberg's not around,
But like, as you said, it's like,
how? It's just the how is it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's the thing, is like, I know Sarah's going to be the one to like ship that. That's going to be her ship to set sail, and she's got to sort of decide that. I think she'll probably have a heavy hand in whatever they decide to write in for that.
Yeah. And I would have been really nice to see Dawn get like the justice she deserved that we like started to get in season 7. We did start to get there, I do think. I always like applaud how they started to rewrite her as like, okay, we're going to have her take some agency. We're going to have her like step it up and be like, listen, I don't have power. Sure, I'll help with the research. Sure, I'll help with X, Y, and Z.
Finding her place in the world as she grew up.
And I would have really loved to see that version of adult Dawn. Like, she's been training with Buffy, so like we can fudge the fighting skills a little bit, even though she's like human and not a Slayer.
I think however they handle it, I trust that whatever is right for Sarah and like the people involved is the right answer. And I'm more comfortable with them being comfortable with how they handle it than I am with getting what I want.
No, and I do trust Sarah. Like, right, I do, like, whatever she does, I do trust that it would be respectful and like...
Yeah, and I think such a big part of Buffy as a show is, I mean, I say it's escapist. In a lot of ways it is. But in a lot of other ways, it's kind of constantly talking about grief. The grief of not getting the perfect, like, bimbo California life, and like your parents are divorced and now, and like your friends shunned you because of this thing. And now you're like the exhaustion of Buffy being like, I have to fight and fight and fight and I never get to rest. And then, you know, her mother dying. Like there are so many.
I mean, the whole Angel storyline is relationship grief.
Yeah, it's so it in a way it would make sense for them to address Michelle / Dawn's passing in the show as, you know, another part of Buffy's reality, that like Buffy is our hero, but she doesn't get happy endings all the time.
Man, you're gonna make me cry at that, Nick. I hate that, but you're right.
Truth is, she very rarely gets happy endings.
I know.
They killed her twice.
Anyway, thank you both for doing this. Thank you all for listening. Anyone who like, I hope that this could like make you feel, get a little bit of it out there. We've been thinking about this. Dana immediately was like, please let me know if you do anything to honor Michelle. I would love to be a part of it. So it was Dana's idea. Thank you for the idea, Dana, because I was worried that this would seem like it was in poor taste or something, but like we do this out of love.
Fandom is about community, even as much as it can drive us crazy sometimes. And our community is in mourning. Why shouldn't we talk about it? This isn't about like ratings or like views. This is about us. Like, I'm genuinely very upset about this. And I've been thinking about it for days. And
you'll make me cry, Dana.
We're in a time in our world, in our country, that is just, it feels impossible to get out of bed sometimes. And then to have this thing, like this Buffy thing that we all love so much, and this person that we all loved so much, you know, taken before their time. I needed somebody to talk to about it. And so I'm glad we can do this together. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people who watch this or see this and feel the same way.
Dina, fuck.
Losing the ability to experience new art from people who I still feel a connection with is just devastating.
That's a really good point, May.
It's a person who put her whole being into the OG version and helped create the legacy of what is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she seems like somebody who deserves like to be part of this, the celebration of what it is, and she deserves to be part of these things.
And thinking that Dawn could be on that revival, it's just one of those little nuggets that, like, I don't want to say keeps you going. That sounds so melodramatic, but it makes you happy. And it gets your mind off of what's going on in the world for just a couple seconds.
The Buffy revival also felt like the one, like, bit of good news we've had in months. And, like, I was, and, you know, we talked about this. Like, I really was looking forward to seeing Michelle get a little bit more to do. Like, whether it be, like you said, just, like, helping people, and it's like one episode and we see that just would have been, I feel like both Dawn and Michelle deserve that, right? Like the character deserved that and the actress deserved to have that be where her character is and get to like be the adult version of this character.
That's what we talked about, is that she would have been helping people in that way. A home for magical children, a home for like something like, whether it be her own children or children that she took on, adopted, but like in the way that she probably needed help. And she didn't really get it from people. Honestly, if we're real, she would have recognized that and stopped that cycle and helped.
I would have been interested to see, what she would have brought into middle age if she had gotten into her 40s. I think there could have been a real interesting turn there, because I think she had the talent, and I know she was a screenwriter. She had written something very strong that she was not able to really sell in the last few years. But every screenwriter has had trouble selling stuff in the last few years, so she was in good company. But I really would have liked to have seen that and seen what she would have had as she aged along with me. But we will go on remembering her quite well.
Listen, and this is so shallow. This is Sabrina's shallow corner. So all the popular girls pull up, and if that's not you, go to the library for lunch. She's so beautiful. She's so beautiful. Every frame of painting. What a gorgeous person. And like from like a starry-eyed like princess child with blush on and like to fully like sex kitten adult. She was really an aesthetic moment and really grew into be such a beautiful woman. And I feel like, when I pass, I hope someone mentions that during the podcast about it. So this is me doing that for you, Michelle. You're stunning.
Yeah, you know where to find us all. I'm not going to bother doing the promo for this one. But everyone feel some love. I hope this can make you feel a little better listening to some gays on a podcast that, talk about it. And yeah, sending out all the love to everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.
Rest in peace, Ice Princess.
Bye.
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 Be kind to yourselves and everybody else.